All right, everyone, a little bit of a different video today. I have our little one for the day. My wonderful, awesome wife is having a nice break from being a mother, which is the hardest job on earth. I want to talk about Tesla stock, which is something that I know a lot of my audience follows very closely. And of course, none of this is going to be investment or financial advice. The biggest thing that comes to mind right now is that I can't really tell if the market is valuing Tesla for what it should value Tesla, or if it's more of a, hey, looks like Elon and Trump are best friends, and that means that good things will happen. I think the takeaway there is that both outcomes are good from a business perspective, right? I don't want to talk about anything else here, but from a business perspective, a partnership with the Trump administration obviously means that Elon Musk and his companies are likely to get benefits and regulations that long-term would help their industries. And it's not so much that he's going to be getting preferential treatment, but I think it's more of a having a president that's not actively out there trying to make you look like an evil person or not giving you the support that you think you deserve, at least publicly, or even through regulations and laws and stuff. We know the IRA was very helpful for Tesla to lower the costs when the Biden administration put it through, and they should be applauded for that. But the reality is, if you look back and just kind of look at the tone of the Trump administration versus the Biden administration, it becomes clear that there's been a huge gap in the public perception of Elon and specifically his companies. If you look at something like SpaceX, why isn't that the most celebrated company in the country before Trump became president? SpaceX got essentially no attention from the Biden administration. And this company, and I don't care what you think of Elon and the individual, it is undoubtedly the greatest asset the United States has long-term by a factor of 1,000. Cheap, reusable rockets sell themselves, okay? For many different reasons. And now seeing how Trump is embracing Elon and his companies really highlights just how big of a disadvantage or how big of a handicap Elon and his companies have had for the last few years, the last 4 years at least. So that's one gigantic forcing function for Elon and his companies to do well. And Tesla specifically should benefit tremendously from that. On top of that, that trend is coalescing or sort of happening at the same time with Tesla's development with artificial intelligence, full self-driving, specifically their V13 release, and of course, the humanoid robot. And what's starting to become obvious, and again, not financial or investment advice, what's starting to become obvious for at least those that aren't super in the weeds with this, I believe, is that self-driving is going to happen. And it's not just going to happen, it's going to happen in a very violent way. And so what I mean by this, with legacy self-driving systems, I love using the word legacy as of late, just to kind of describe what has been, right? Or what has existed. Excuse me. Waymo, Cruise, Zoox, etc. Especially players outside of China, because China is making insane advancements with this. They've been trying to brute force self-driving technology for the longest time. Brute forcing meaning using LiDAR, radar, sonar, lasers, I don't know, just come up with a sensor, they have it. What this has caused is that their solutions are very, very expensive and very slow to scale, to make more of. A Waymo costs anywhere between 100 to 200,000, maybe more. I think their newest ones probably cost closer to 100,000 to build per unit. The problem is Waymo can only make perhaps 1,000 of these per year. And so what this means is that you have an expensive product relative to Tesla, which we'll talk about here in a second, and you can barely make any of them. But they do drive themselves, and they drive themselves relatively well, enough for people to use them and for them to be significantly safer than a human. And that is amazing, and Waymo deserves, and all these players deserve all the credit in the world for achieving this insane technical marvel and risk that they took. That's crazy, and they did it, right? So they should be applauded massively. The problem is, in Tesla's case, they have now proof, in my opinion, that their solution also works. And their solution doesn't use LiDAR, radar, sonar, lasers, ultrasonics, beams from space, whatever you want to say, right? Their solution uses 8 cameras around the car, 3 facing forward, 1 facing backwards, 4 facing to the side, 2 to the left, 2 to the right. Just good old cameras that each probably cost $3. And a supercomputer of sorts in the car, an inference computer, which is a fancy way of saying it's a computer that processes AI code that costs maybe no more than $1,500, $2,000, and a AI brain in their headquarters, which is getting priority from players like NVIDIA to build out the fastest, most capable supercomputers on planet Earth. This combination is allowing Tesla to do 2 things. Number one, they're gonna solve self-driving. They're going to solve self-driving. I think the narrative for the longest time is, oh, it's not gonna happen. It's the solution's too novel. You need all these sensors. No, you don't. You don't. If you have a FSD car, and if you've experienced V13, which I've spoken to now 5 different people who have experienced V13, and every single one of those conversations will be live on YouTube. Most of them already are, so you can check it out on my channel if you haven't yet. It's becoming extremely obvious that this is not a hardware problem for Tesla. It's a software problem. It's a AI problem. It's a figure out what you want to do with the data you see problem, right? It's not that the car doesn't have enough to see. It has enough to see. The problem has been, what decision is it making based on what it sees? And from my standpoint, this has been clear since the release of V11. V11 was 2 years ago, maybe? Yeah, something like 2 years ago. Where it became obvious to me that it's not so much that the car can't see certain things, is that it hasn't yet learned how to handle the situations based on what it sees, even down to potholes, even down to garbage on the street, or weird paint lines, or just whatever you want to come up with, fog, rain, snow, etc. It has what it needs to see it. It's just figuring out how to handle it. The reason why V13 and the leaps that Tesla's making from an AI perspective are so insanely profound now is that has been proven correct, in my opinion. That the hardware problem should no longer be in doubt. It's not a hardware problem, it's a software problem. And the advancements they've made from a software perspective, an AI perspective, especially as of late with their pace of improvements and innovation they've had with versions 12 and specifically version 13, it's making it extremely obvious that this is the case. So what does that mean? That means that Tesla now has the ability to flip a switch and give essentially most of their cars in their fleet, even the hardware 3 cars that perhaps don't have a strong enough computer, they're going to get upgraded for free per Elon Musk. They're going to get a free computer to be able to handle unsupervised self-driving. They're going to get an update that's going to leverage the existing hardware, and the cars will just drive themselves. They'll just drive themselves without you having to pay attention. What does that mean? That means that Tesla overnight, literally overnight, will have somewhere along 500x. Is that math right? Whatever. 100 to 1,000x more self-driving vehicles than their entire competition combined. Because they're not limited by the expensive nature of the sensor suites that legacy self-driving companies use. On top of that, because of that, they should be able to offer a cost per mile that is significantly cheaper than anything else on the road, including a self-driving vehicle. A vehicle's most expensive piece by far is the driver. It's not gas, it's not maintenance, it's not insurance, it's the driver. It's the time of the driver to get behind the wheel and go from point A to point B. That is easily the most expensive part of that vehicle. It doesn't matter what car, even in a freaking Toyota Corolla, okay? The driver, especially in a Toyota Corolla, the driver is by far the most expensive piece of the equation. Tesla's approach is the only one so far that can capitalize on that, because the car itself to operate is not expensive. It doesn't have the $100,000+ of equipment in the car. It doesn't have the HD maps that have to be maintained by a giant team or a lot of resources. It doesn't have the heuristics, the human code that has to be maintained and kept up by a team of programmers. Okay? It doesn't have to deal with having to account for brand new regions and mapping out the new regions and ensuring that they're doing the right thing. They have every cone figured out. They have every line figured out. They have everything figured out. That's not part of their problem, because their solution just knows how to drive anywhere. Anywhere. You can literally pick up a car on V13 in San Francisco and drop it in Orlando or New York or in Newark, New Jersey, or in Providence, Rhode Island, or in Boise, Idaho, or in Austin, Texas. It doesn't matter. In freaking middle of nowhere, Kansas. Shout out Kansas. I know people from Kansas watch this channel. I love you, okay? Doesn't matter where you drop this car. It will drive itself. And it will increasingly drive itself with less and less interventions from a human, to the point where a human won't have to be involved no more than once every million miles plus as the system gets better. In my opinion, that's a very obvious thing that is going to happen. I wonder if the market will actually evaluate Tesla in that manner soon. In the past, I've had this thought that the market won't really give Tesla the credit for self-driving or their AI developments or even the humanoid robot, which is its own separate video, to be honest. They won't give them the benefit of the doubt or the benefit until they put pen to paper, until they say, this is how much money we've made on self-driving. And I think in some respects, that's still going to be the case. But with the Trump admin now backing Musk in the way that honestly Biden should have backed him, to be completely honest, I think their runway has been brought forward a lot. But I think it's hard to ignore that this is a very valuable company long term, especially as they get closer to bringing unsupervised driving. And then the bot piece, given that self-driving is going to work, that means that the underlying technology to power the self-driving car will also work for the bot. It has its own set of challenges. It has its own set of issues. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take forever, or maybe not. I don't know, depending on. It's a lot less regulation to bring bot to market, but it's brand new. There's different safety implications. The last thing Tesla wants is for a bot to fall on someone's cat and killing the cat. That's a disaster, right? In their own home. Don't want that. That's going to take a long time to ensure that that's not the case. But the value proposition of a bot is insane. It's a magnitude or more, probably a couple orders of magnitude, like 100x more valuable long term than the car, because you're just talking about labor, period, just human labor, infinite human labor, quasi-infinite. Like you can just make as many robots as you want. Why not? They can do everything for you. Why won't you make more? And there is a little bit of me that also says, I wonder if the market's waking up to that before the car piece, because the human or robot market is not nearly as regulated as road missiles, aka cars, right? It's a B2B, business to business type of thing. You don't really need to meet any sort of insane regulations to be able to sell to an Amazon or a Coca-Cola or whatever. Just pick your company that could benefit tremendously from having humanoid robots in their business. Helps Tesla because they sell them, helps the business because they lower their costs, right? So it's freaking crazy. What a crazy time. Anyway, I thought this was a timely video given that Tesla stock is doing some crazy shit. And again, not financial or investment advice, but I do know a large part of my audience follows the story very closely. And I think this video is sort of for me personally, it's a reminder that it's very important to ensure that noise is filtered out during difficult, quote unquote, difficult times for a story, especially for companies that are trying to solve things from a novel perspective. They're trying to do new things and solving new problems with new solutions, the trend appears to be that those will always get doubted, especially as they get closer to solving it, until they solve it. And once they solve it, the entire market's like, oh yeah, cool, no, yeah, cool, yeah, here you go. It's happened twice already in Tesla's sort of history. 2013, when they became profitable for the first time. 2020, 2019, when they became profitable with a mass market vehicle multiple quarters in a row. And it seems like, again, not financial investment advice, it feels like this might be the beginning of the realization as it pertains to their artificial intelligence capabilities. But we'll see. Thank you for watching.